Yo, welcome to. Can you stop doing that?
Yeah. Alright.
Welcome to a very special episode of Life Chats. We have our good friend with us, Mr. Nolan Molfetta. Very nice to see you, sir.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad that we basically had to blackmail you to get you on the show, but you know what? It's
I was promised pizza and chips.
you got neither. Yeah.
I didn't make that
Making me the worst host. Never come to my parties. They're always awful. So I had an idea a couple days ago. Actually, more like a couple weeks ago. I reached out to you. I wrote this down for you. I saw a really good movie called Isle of Dogs. If you haven't seen it, it's a Wes Anderson film. Fantastic. Visually, one of the best movies I've seen from an animation perspective. It looks amazing, and the characters are, again, so well written that one thing that I noticed when I was sitting there watching the movie, a couple of kids were making up behind me, kicking my chair. That didn't bother me because the movie was that amazing. The movie had no plot to it at all. It was a child trying to find his dog. And I love it how I'm basically just like, I'm taking over your seat.
Poor guy, he's guesting. You don't give him pizza and chips.
And they put me in the crack of the couch too. Like I'm sitting in between cushions.
to block the shot properly. And watch, I'm still gonna.
Usually it's
watch,
just
I'm still gonna have my face cut off.
Cheesy?
That'd be great.
Usually it's just the two of us, that are in there, so sorry.
But no, so I was thinking that for a movie that has no story to it, I'm totally enamored by what I'm watching. And so I wanted to ask, so you guys both have a history when it comes to acting?
I thought you were just going to leave a history, and I'm like,
You guys have a history. You guys have a history together, right? But
long one.
now, when it comes to,
Good history.
like when it comes to, so like, you guys have had experience writing as well. You guys have wrote a screenplay. Whether or not it gets picked up, I mean, my fingers are still crossed, so crazier shit's happened, but when you guys were writing the screenplay, were you guys focusing on what was your idea with the script? What story did you want to tell in your own experience writing?
Wow, that's a long time ago.
The original story was a little bit of a pipe dream. It was about two actors who make it in the industry, and we just kind of stopped there.
Yeah,
I think we were trying to write Good Will Hunting, except without like the story behind Good Will Hunting, without doing any research or any planning.
Well, we were just starting out, though. I mean, that's different. Like, we were 18.
You can look back at the videos that we first made, and they're fucking awful.
We were
and then you look back to now, and they're still awful. Yeah.
hey, man. 11 subscribers, we might get Jeff Noel.
Oh, yeah.
Because people know who the fuck that is. Yeah.
They do.
Oh, Natalie's not going to come because he said that.
Well, we can edit
Damn
it,
it!
right?
Yeah.
We're not live, are we?
Yeah. we're viral, man. We can bleep that part out. But
Sure.
But you're saying, so when you guys wrote the script, it was you were very green at the time. You were very new to the process. Did you have an end goal? I know you're saying you're trying to rip off Good Will Hunting, but did you have a reason to rip that? Was that a good movie? So what was the story you're trying to convey with two actors making it? Why was the story needed to be told?
Well, needed. Now I think after Disaster Artist, it's pretty much been told. I don't know. We were two young kids that just wanted to write something that was passionate to us, and I was inspired by Sylvester Stallone and with Rocky, and Nolan really liked Social Network, and we both liked Good Will Hunting, so it was an amalgamation of that kind of stuff that kind of fueled our passion to write. And so that kind of just started off like what was passionate to us, why, and we're kind of developing something right now. And the big thing writing with Nolan over the years is, why are we telling this story? Which is very important, actually. I didn't recognize that until much later on, because there has to be a reason. There's so many stories to be told out there.
What makes yours different?
Exactly. What makes it unique? Not just different, but what makes it unique, and what are the twists that you can use? And not for just the sake of having a twist, because any story can have a twist, but it has to be like organic, and it has to be within the spectrum. It has to be within what the characters do, and not just for the sake of it. And that's something that actually we're doing now, is a big thing that Nolan is talking about in our meetings and discussions is we can't just have twists for the sake of twists. You know, you just can't write scenes just so that you want an end goal. You have to do it from within, and then from within comes everything.
Well, I'm sort of, and you're absolutely right. It needs to be, these twists need to be rooted in what the characters, what they would potentially be doing.
Right.
Not unrealistic for the characters themselves. Now, I know you've written plays for festivals in Hamilton and Toronto. Now, when you were coming up with the characters and Scribe, for example, what compelled you to make that story? What the characters you made, what archetypes were they? What made you want to tell that?
Well, I guess this is a good time to sort of expand on what Michael was talking about. I didn't know when I was writing Scribe that you kind of had to start with the why. Why are you writing this? Because Scribe, I did a play in 2015 about an illiterate scribe who winds up in service of the king, and I wrote that play just pissing in the wind. I was having fun. It was clever. It was humorous, and the plot was huge and unnecessary. Because I didn't really know what I was trying to say with it.
So would you, knowing what you know now, if you were to rewrite it, would there be a lot of changes that you would make knowing what you know now?
Yeah, I might keep the character names because they were kind of fun.
I gotta give yourself some credit.
I enjoyed the character names. So.
Well, I'm glad that you did. Yeah, I mean, as an audience member, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just there's a lot.
You didn't go.
I never read Scribe actually.
You didn't go to the play.
I sent it to you.
Did you?
Yeah. Oh well, there you go.
Well,
hey, I didn't read your last script.
That's true. That's true. It's got me
They
there.
deserve that one. Eh?
Yeah.
Oh, but no. So you were saying that you keep the names because they were clever.
The names were fun. Brodery, Padre, which I thought was original at the time, apparently means like uncle in 15 languages. I only speak one, so I'll plead ignorance there.
Yeah, no, you're allowed to do that for sure.
King Guatensburg. I think I just like hit the keyboard a couple times until like something that sounded like a word came out.
You're like, that's it, man. That's but
Guatensburg.
But like you're saying, it's the why behind the story.
Yeah. So I wrote it because I wanted to have fun, but like, it's not only like why are you telling this story, but why does an audience care? I read a book recently, and I can't remember the name, but it talked about
riveting.
I know that's the story. It talked about the evolutionary reasoning why stories are so vital to. Well, why we like them so much is because in a way they are vital to our survival. It lets you live through an experience without actually having to do it for yourself. So you can learn what happens if your mom marries your uncle after your father dies. Like, you know, Hamlet is although it's an entertaining story, it's entertaining because part of that is allowing you to live vicariously through someone else to learn lessons about yourself, and that is what our brain is always doing. Every moment is survival, survival, survival. Just all this stuff is extra on top of that.
Well, it's interesting. You're talking about stories like Hamlet that are not only entertaining, but they're a means of an audience to project themselves onto the character and live vicariously through their experiences, even though the character is completely different from the individual as a subjective being. You see movies like Hunger Games who have very bland and vanilla main characters.
Well, that's Jennifer Lawrence.
Sorry,
Sorry if you're watching this.
I'm sorry, I got to take a shot.
Apologies to Jeff Knoll and Jennifer Lawrence, because they were clearly avid fans of the show. But no, like, this is a character who was so basic that anyone could just project themselves on that character. And you've seen that done a million times, where other characters in movies, Neo from The Matrix, are not gregarious people. They're not interpersonal. They're very meek, they're very shallow, they're very humble, so anyone can put themselves on the character, and they could be taking the red pill. I talk with my hands.
Are you saying like they're one-dimensional? Is that what you're getting? I'm just a little confused, sorry.
But just to Nolan's point about projecting and living vicariously through someone, writers are intentionally making their main characters boring, so the audience can project themselves on the person.
That's not what I said.
I was like,
That's what I interpret.
Is that what you got from it?
All art is subjective.
Well,
That's true.
Yeah.
So actually, it's an interesting question now that you were talking about characters and relation. What characters, when you were growing up, or even characters that now that you watch in like movies, read about, like in books and stuff, TV, film, what characters do you think that you relate to the most? Don't talk about the series that they're in. They won't, I mean, I'm sure that plays a part in it. But like, which characters that, like, if you were to pick 1, 2, maybe 3, which ones would you associate yourself relate most to, and how and why?
the 4-year-old virgin, for none of the good reasons.
Oh, so that good one where he's a 4-year-old virgin.
No. I don't know. Like, I guess I would relate to Timon in a way that I kind of grew up wanting to be like Timon and Pumbaa. Like, they just had the very chill vibe.
Oh yeah.
For those that know me, like I try to be like the sit back, relax, mellow, like, oh, look at it in the grand scheme of things way. So I feel like those guys were kind of a subconscious motivation in my childhood.
Okay, cool. Kevin?
I would say
Ron Weasley?
no. No, because that doesn't get so old after a long time. When I go to Harry Potter Land and they offer me a job because I have red hair, and they're saying you look like a Weasley.
Why wouldn't you take it?
Because I was visiting Orlando for a vacation and I just started at Brock.
Yeah, but Harry Potter Land.
I know. Florida.
Retrospect, you know.
Anyway.
You could have gotten season
Hindsight
tickets for
2020. I would say Marshall Erickson from How I Met Your Mother. Because not because of the show.
Although you're more Ted.
No, I'm actually not. I'd say if anyone's more Ted, it'd be you.
Yeah. No, it's true. I get that a lot. Yeah.
But it's funny because a lot of people. It's interesting because a lot of people say anyone who watches the show says I remind them of Jason Segel's character.
Yeah.
A lot of people I talk to, and in saying that, there are personality traits that I see myself in a character like him, and say that's me, and I identify with that, and I take away something positive from that. When he's just a character and Jason Segel isn't Marshall Erickson.
Yeah, he's
not.
He's not.
But the character he portrays has the qualities that I find to be positive and endearing, so therefore I love that character because not only are there qualities that he possesses that I think are good, there are qualities that other people have identified as saying I have the same. Yeah. So it almost provides not acceptance, but it's almost like vindicating what I do, getting that outward approval in things that I think are good. It just reaffirms what I believe in, and that's just a character on a sitcom after season 4.
Okay, I was gonna say it was good for a while. Yeah, for sure.
But what about you, man? Would you say Joey Tribbiani?
Joey Tribbiani and Chandler Bing? No. I was actually maybe because a lot of people say I'm a lot like those characters. But when I was growing up, 2, 3 that I kind of gravitated towards were Luke Skywalker.
Okay, because of course, yeah,
and Harry Potter. Those ones. I think Luke Skywalker was always a dreamer. He always wanted adventure, and well, even today I'm like that. I like adventure. I always want to go out, and there's the one good line probably in Last Jedi is, "Oh, you always look to the horizon." That was something that I always did growing up, and it kind of just I always looked to the horizon. I always looked to the destination, not really worrying. And you gave me this for years, not really worrying about the journey. Hey, I'm self-aware, but not really worrying about the journey itself. Just focusing on the destination itself. And I mean, Darth Vader was his dad. Moving on.
I get it. I get it.
It's a joke.
Do you get it?
The dad to destination thing.
Yes.
I don't know. I was really listening.
Wow.
I'm just kidding. Keep
and then Harry Potter was that I didn't really expect because I was an avid Harry Potter fan. What was interesting about Harry Potter was that he learns in his teenage years that he learns a lot. But the one main takeaway that I got out of that was he realizes that not all adults have the answers, and not all adults, because usually you're always like, act like a grown-up, think like a grown-up, but he learns pretty early in the series that adults aren't all what they're cracked up to be. And I mean, it's kind of a pessimist way of looking at the world, but that was something I learned as a teenager too around then. That was like, adults aren't really, I mean, some are, absolutely,
Right.
but I'm not painting them all with one brush, but there are adults out there that are not.
So to take that further, though, would you say that what you learned from Harry Potter, the character, the series, what have you, is that you have to sort of go your own way and find out your own things?
Right,
Not to take it what
Yeah.
someone else is giving you, but
Yeah.
to explore and to go through the process.
Yeah, yeah, and kind of keep your head on a swivel a bit, which is how I kind of identified with Bruce Wayne a little bit. Not Batman,
Oh my
but the
God.
Bruce Wayne thing. But that kind of
Luke Skywalker, Harry Potter, and Bruce Wayne. Wow, just
What are we missing? Like,
And Matthew Perry, no, not Matthew Perry, Chandler Bing, and Joey Tribbiani.
oh god. But see, you know what?
And Ted
It's yeah, the latter more so in the last few months. But
Oh man, actually not anymore.
see, like and that's why I find it's interesting about you. I know you said art is subjective, and it is, but kind of going back to what you were saying, one of the reasons when you were writing certain things, why are you saying this? Why? How do you make it unique? For example, right? And I look at Isle of Dogs, for example, and it set out to have a message that wasn't in story narrative per se, or even the characters' interactions. It was visual storytelling that illustrated not to abuse the planet, not to treat animals with disrespect because we are viewed as superior beings when we're animals of this earth as well.
Did it throw that message in your face?
No.
Okay.
It was very subtle. You had to, and if it had a heavier plot,
Right.
you would have just missed it completely. So it's interesting when
Take no, Kathleen Kennedy.
but see, it's interesting like when you're talking about characters and the intention, either directly or indirectly, behind their actions is enough to define people, especially actors who have motivation. The intent behind a certain character and what they do, Harry Potter, and realizing that not all adults know the message, and you identified that during a part of your life that resonated more with you, that defines who you are today.
Yeah.
So it's the, and that's why I think you have stories, and to your point earlier, that having stories is so essential to the human condition, is because not only are we vicariously living through someone else, like you were saying, and you learn something about yourself, but it's an extension of ourselves. We latch on to anything that reminds us of us because, at the end of the day, not to be pessimistic, but there isn't really much going on Earth that has basic meaning. We are here for a short period of time. We are just so desperate to find anything that reminds us of us during our time here. So it's interesting to me, the intention behind certain characters as to why they're written, and the stories behind them, why we tell stories, and why we think that's essential to the human condition. I find that's interesting.
So Nolan, because you've written more than I have, in terms of like narrative, what do you think is most important? Do you think it's dialogue, character dynamics? Did I say plot already? No, plot.
I wasn't paying attention.
What the hell, guys? This TV's been on the entire time and it's been bugging me. But what do you think? What do you think is like the primary?
There we go. We gotta record all this all over again.
What do you think is for you? What do you hold as, I guess, the pinnacle of a good story or a good script? Like when you read it, when you write it, like what is the main thing that you look for?
Well, I realized that I sort of know nothing about what I do, which is the first step towards actually working on something, right?
Right.
The wise man knows how ignorant he is, or so I've heard. So for me right now, the biggest part is premise.
Mhm.
And it goes back to that why. It's like the most basic thing. Like a man is thrown into the upper ranks of a mafia underworld when there's a hit on his father. that they try to execute, and you look at that and you go, okay, well, what can happen with this story? It's kind of like life. Like, you're in any given situation, what could happen? It's all around us. So you start with that, and then you slowly branch outwards, grasping onto potential. And eventually, structure comes out. Like, you look at the things that can happen, you find out what will happen, and you get to the dialogue last. Me, I used to just write dialogue, and then edit
the story around.
Yeah, and then I would edit dialogue, and I would have these giant convoluted plots, and wonder why I couldn't make anything more simple. But yeah,
premise is so important. Yeah.
So that's what I'm reading right now, anyway. Yeah. John Truby, I'm reading right now. So
we don't know the title, but we know the author.
No, this one is called
So we know the author, but not the title.
Wow.
We'll come back to you after we're done.
We'll add it in the comments.
After these messages.
Yeah, we can add that in the post. Yeah, no, we have the comments. Yeah, but
no, I have an idea. I'm just gonna move my mouth.
We just add that.
And I'll record.
Yeah, we do that.
And if it's just me moving my mouth, it shows how lazy we are.
That's realistically what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Well, this is awkward.
But no, honestly, man, it's been a really good chat. Thank you so much for coming on, man.
Yeah,
I'm glad you were able to. What?
The TV is just but no, it is. It was nice.
You're listening.
No,
But you know what? I'm just putting it in. I was told there would be pizza and
you
shit.
told him that.
My mom said we'd order it, and I was like, "Mom, don't promise that because
I didn't even know.
I know.
Had I known you made such an offer, I would have brought pizza.
You would have forced me to buy it. I know.
I would have got it.
So thank you for watching. If you actually stayed till the end, I wouldn't have.
And he's in this episode, so what does that tell you?
Well, that's why. I don't have anything good to say.
This was good. Thanks, Nolan, for coming on and sharing your wisdom with us, and love the blanket.
Thanks, man.
Love the sweater. It's also mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's lots to talk on Hawk. Thank you so much for watching, guys. But no, realistically, thank you, and thank you, honestly, Nolan, for taking the time out of your busy day to be on there. And we'll see you guys next weekend. Vegas, they f***ed up. They're done. So
Hope he got his cup. I'm okay.
I guess thank God for that.
And Ontario, sorry.
We're not. Politics into this.
I don't know.
That's good.
I voted green.